to my channel. Today we're moving on and doing more of the black fur, and we're really going to start bringing this head shape to life. Last time we got these whiskers in and we still have this little area to finish, so we're going to finish this little area and then we're going to start on this black fur. If you're not subscribed to the channel already, please subscribe, and I hope you enjoy this video. So we're going to start off with the white pencil again, and we're going to just map in some of these white whiskers, like we did here, to create like that base where we won't go over them, and then we can add in some of the mouth details that are missing, and then we will get onto the black fur. So I'm just going to zoom you in. Okay, so I've got my white pencil and I'm just going to start by marking in some of these whiskers. So we've got one along this edge here, coming down there. So this is quite a big group of whiskers, so we will go over this with one of the warm greys, and that's just going to help you give some sort of colour to them. So it is like a big group of whiskers here, and then you've got some sort of single ones coming down here. I'm then going to get my warm grey, if I can find it. So I've got my warm grey one, and where there's this clump of whiskers starting, I'm just adding a base layer over the top of the white. You might have to press hard to get it over the white. The white does create a bit of a resistance, sorry. And I'm just going to lightly taper those edges. And then I'm going to get the warm grey free, and where I want some more definition between these whiskers, again you might have to press hard, and I'm just going to add in some darker lines just to show that there's some individual whiskers going on here, and we'll blend that out at the bottom like so. I'm also going to do the warm grey free in this corner here, ever so slightly, very lightly. So we've got quite a dark clump of fur or whiskers at the bottom. Then got the black, and we're going to add the black in the corner of this mouth, and we need to sort of identify that there's a whisker in here. So I'm trying to explain it. So we've got one little whisker, so I've got a line here from the corner of this tooth going up. There's going to be a whisker here, so I'm going to make sure I've got that line there. So do you see how we've got a whisker being made up? And then this area here is going to be black, and it's just going to blend into that purple area that we've got where the tongue is. I hope that made a bit of sense. I'm also going to just ever so slightly add a few stray black lines going up to give the effect that that is fur on top of the tongue, and then darken here. Circular motions just to help blend into that area, and then you want a straight edge where that whisker is and where that tooth is, like so. Sticking with the black, and I'm again going up here where there's a whisker, and then coming down here, and we've got like this triangle shape going on, and then we've got individual whiskers in between. So we've got a big triangle, and then we're going to create a smaller triangle within that triangle, and that bit's going to be black. That's coming down, and then I'm just using the black very lightly. I'm not pressing too hard, just to create some definition there. And if you feel like you want the definition to be greater with this clump of fur, just go in with your black. I do want you guys to sort of obviously use the techniques that I'm describing, follow along, but also make the piece your own. So if you don't want this to be as clumpy, add more whiskers. That's completely fine. We do also need to bring this black down here, so I'm just circular motions to blend into that gum, like so. Now we've got like a really dark tooth here that we've not got in. I'm just going to add this black very gently here, very gently. And then I'm going to take the Van Dyke Brown very lightly with the Van Dyke Brown in circular motions over that black bit, and then I'm going to get the Warm Grey free and I'm just going to darken. That little area up there, and then I've got the black again, and I'm just going down the outside where this whisker is, and then circular motions into this mouth just to help darken this mouth to show it's in shadow. Oops. And then I'm also just going to bring this, I want this whisker to be a bit more defined, so I'm just going to bring this line down even more, a bit straighter there. Like so. So there we go, we've got some whiskers in now, so we can really start focusing on all this fur. So I have the Warm Grey one, and this is our base layer. Now we do have these whiskers coming down, so let's just get the edges of these whiskers in. So I've got a white whisker coming here, and then that one coming there, and that ever so slightly. So it's not very long, but it does sort of go into the black fur. Then got the Warm Grey one, and this is the base layer. Now if you're if you want to go around the whiskers with your base layer, you can do. I may go back in over the top with my slice tool, just to really give some definition. We shall see. But yeah, we're now getting this fur in. So Warm Grey one as a base layer. This bit is going to be where we've got the transition. So I'm just going to get this in first so it doesn't get confusing. We're going to get the dark indigo. So I've got the dark indigo, and I'm very lightly along the bottom of this mouth, just applying where I can see this colour. It's quite dark here. All along here, and that's going to blend into there. Okay, so you can see like I've not pressed hard enough with the white, so I'm going to have to go in and add these whiskers again, which is completely fine. So we've got the base layer, so we've got the Warm Grey one, then you've got the dark indigo, and now we've got the Paynes Grey. So I've got the Paynes Grey, and I'm just going to go in, following this fur direction now. Bit of a harder pressure, and we're just going to start building up to how dark it is here. Now we do have some markings here, so I'm just using thinner lines just to map in some of these darker lines and taper your edges off so it blends into this white fur. Again, following the fur direction all the time. Yep. Hoping we can get quite a bit of this black fur done today. So I'm going over where these whiskers are because I'm going to add them back in. So we need to, so I'm following this fur. So the fur's coming round here, but as I come up here, this bit of fur is sort of coming down. So I'm making sure I'm following that. And then that's gonna cross there. So that's one layer of the Paynes Grey, and then I'm just going to go over it again. Just blending into that black where we've had black before. following the fur direction, and I do think this is going to be quite repetitive. It's going to be follow the fur direction all the time, but it is important. Now, before I go in with the black, I've got the Warm Grey 6, and I'm just going to bring it along the edge where I want some of these darker tones. And I'm just going to start with this Warm Grey 6 first. Not all over, I still want some of this Paynes Grey to show through, because you can see that bluish tone. And then I will get the black. Now the black, we're doing it along the bottom of this mouth where it blends into the fur, so I'm making sure that I'm overlapping these two areas. Get that nice blend between them that I always talk about. Just going to smooth it. There we go. So get that nice blend, and then we've got a dark patch of fur here. And there's like a darker clump here, so it's just mapping in those shadows, and then I'm just going to lightly taper into the bluer areas so it blends. And then we've got this dark area here that comes down, so we're just going to get that into a shadowed area here. Bring that down, and then we're going to just add few areas here. So it's all starting to really come together now. So we need to get this area in so that we can start curving this fur around. So we're just going to come back up his face a little bit. Warm Grey 1 as your base layer. You can use Cold Grey 1 if you again want that colder colour to his fur. I like the colours that are sort of coming together nicely now in his fur. Leave a gap for that bit of whisker. I just like how the Warm Grey and the Paynes Greys and Dark Indigos are sort of working together. Getting a nice black colour to his fur with still that hint of blue, but it's not too much for me. Right, I'm going to bring this further out, I think. So I'm going to come along this line. Just bring it further out. Now, if you prefer to work this section in a larger section, do. I'm doing it little by little just because it's sometimes easier for other people to follow. So I'm just going to bring this all the way up here. So it's quite a big clump now that we've got a base layer in. But that's fine. I think after the next part of this tutorial will be that big ear, which is quite a dark area, so it shouldn't take too long. We may just go straight in with the black. Bit of blue and the black. Right, got that base layer. Oh, I've got missed a patch. Right, got the base layer. So, dark indigo again. Now I'm really conscious that we've got this patch of fur that's meeting each other here. So I'm looking at the reference photo and I can see that this bit here is darker. So I'm going to add this in here. So I'm following the shape where I can see this fur meeting. I'm then going to get my, what colour are you? This is mauve, so this is like a purple. And I'm just going to add this over the top here. This is where I can see like a purplish tone going into that bit of fur there. And then this patch of, or this clump of fur, I should say, is coming down his face. And it's going to start getting longer. So short pencil strokes to about halfway, and then you're going to start getting longer pencil strokes. And I'm still with the dark indigo, and we're just going to add this dark indigo in. over the top. And again, I'm looking at this fur direction, so it's going sideways here before it comes down. And then we've got into longer pencil strokes when we get down there. So I'm just constantly looking at my reference photo, seeing where this fur's going, and just following that direction. So it's kind of coming out here first and then curving round. It's quite a large area to cover, so don't worry, if you want to do it bit by bit, do it bit by bit. Just do it in a way that works best for you. And then I'm going to come back down here. This is coming round like that, and we have a few little lines here. That's going to curve down. So again, I'm really focusing on this fur direction. It's really sort of curving around here now, so that's curving. So you can see how it's all different. So this is curving round, that's not as much of a curve, and this is more straight down. Still a slight curve, but it's different to this curve. I'm looking forward to seeing this all finished though. I think it's going to look really nice. And then once I've done, once we've got all the colour down, the final part will be to put the reference away and then add or darken areas that your picture needs. So there may be areas that you want to darken that aren't as dark in the reference photo, and that's fine. Right, that's the dark indigo. I'm going to get the Paynes Grey as before. And no, I'm not getting the Paynes Grey. I'm going to get the Coal Grey 5. I'm going to start here first, up here. So I know I've not got this area in yet. I'm going to do that after. We're going to stick to this darker patch. Coal Grey 5 above the whisker. And I'm going to blend into this area. And then come down here. Longer pencil strokes. Trying to just get a nice blend out. And I'm sticking to the Coal Grey 5 in this area. I'm going over that purple and blue. Just sweep it downwards like so. I'll then get the Paynes Grey. And I'm just, this is underneath the whisker. So I'm following this fur. But what I'm doing now is I'm sort of looking for these clumps of fur that I can see first and marking in these darker lines. Marking them in first, so I'm constantly looking at the reference and I'm just seeing where I can see these darker clumps of fur, like this, and then there's like another line here. So this is sort of an indication of the fur direction. Again, then going to go over everything with the Paynes Grey. So I've pressed quite, not, I'd say medium pressure, not too hard. I can still go over the top of these lines. But I'm using lighter pressure now below them and going over the top so that they'll keep darkening, but we're still getting that Paynes Grey effect. This will take a few layers. Again, just making sure that I'm following that fur direction. Now this, if you wanted to use like blending spirits, so there's Zest It, you can do. You just need to make sure that you get a lot of layers down on the paper, and that'll help with your blending, and it can speed up the process. You'd have to wait for the areas to dry and then go back on top. I like the effect you get when you just use your pencils. Okay, so that's the Paynes Grey there. I'm going to get the Warm Grey 5. I'm going to go over these darker patches. I'm just blending into this area over these darker lines with the Warm Grey 6, sorry. I think I said 6. Over these lines, pressing fairly hard now. Just going to blend out here as well. I'm going to go with the Cold Grey 6. So I've got the Cold Grey 6 now, and I'm just going to go over the top of everything. Now you could go back over the Paynes Grey if you wanted. I'm quite liking the mix of the Cold Grey 6 and the Paynes Grey though on this piece. And I'm just going to use longer pencil strokes now. Bit of a harder pressure, really wanting to darken up now and add some contrast. You can see now by using that Warm Grey 6 that it's darkened those lines up. I'm getting some really nice blends now. And I'm just going over some of the other areas where it needs to be blended a bit better. And then that's curving round. May end up going back over this with the Paynes Grey, we'll see as we come down here. Right, I'm then going to get the Paynes Grey and I'm going to darken all of this up. Again, following the fur direction. Medium pressure. And I'm making sure I'm using the sharp point of my pencil, so you may end up sharpening your pencils quite a few times, but I'm just turning the pencil so that I get the sharper points. It's absolutely freezing today. We've got snow again. So I am so cold. Lots of cups of teas and blankets to keep warm. And then hopefully this will help now that we're in the flow of this piece. Soon warm up. I've nearly finished my Christmas commissions as well, so I should be able to get more of this piece filmed once that's finished, once my Christmas commissions are finished. So hopefully it won't take us too long now to finish this guy. And then I am going to be taking a break just over Christmas, and then back in the new year we will get more tutorials done. Right, so this is the Paynes Grey, and you can see it looks kind of scruffy at the moment with the pencil work, but that's fine. Going in with the black, and I'm just going to go over where I've got it here because it's coming down. And I'm going to really start refining this piece now with this black. So I can see where this black is. And I'm just going to go over the top here. It's quite dark as it comes round. And I'm tapering those edges, so I'm blending them up. And this area is dark. here. So if you've got any areas like this where you can still see the grain of the paper, if you get your warm grey 2 and just use this as a blend, you see how the warm grey 2 just helps smooth out that grain, and then I'll go back over the top with the black just to add back in some of that fur definition. I think my phone is showing it up to look a bit grainier than it looks, but we're getting there now. Right, I'm going to come back down with the black here. We've got a bit of darker, so we do need to darken this area back up. I have to be careful. I think I've done so much work lately that my wrist is hurting, so I'm just trying to take it easy, but I do want to get these filmed for you. Take a break soon, maybe come back to the filming. Right, so that's the black. I'm going to get the Paynes Grey over the top and just harder pressure. Just want to smooth and darken this out. You can see I'm just going over all those areas with this Paynes Grey, and it's just darkening this up nicely now. We're getting a nice shine in the coat that we can see, so it's all really starting to come together now. I do think black fur does take time. I like to build up, as you can tell, all the layers of colour, so it does take me a while, but I think it's worth it in the end. Like I say, you can go straight in with black in some of these darker areas, but the good thing with these Polychromos is that there is translucent pencil, so by building up the layers, all the colours show through and you get a really nice depth to your fur. So we're nearly there. I'm just going to get the Cold Grey 5 just along this edge where it was lighter and up top here. Just going to blend into here, getting rid of some of that grain where that whisker is. Like I say, if you're not happy with the amount of grain showing, just use that warm grey too to help with the smooth it out. Okay, we are getting there. We're starting to really see his face come together now, so let's keep going. So I've just zoomed you out slightly so that you can see, just by adding in this bit of fur, we're really starting to get that structure to his face. So we're going to start coming up and bringing it down. This sort of area is going to be like towards the end, so we need to start bringing this head shape round. Get ready to do the ear. But the first thing that we need to do is we've missed some whiskers, and we need to get those whiskers in. So I've got the warm grey too, and we've got some whiskers along here to add. So all I'm doing is I'm just adding in some of these longer bits of fur and the whiskers. And the trick to doing this is whiskers can be scary, but just hard pressure and lift. So just follow the direction. And again, they don't need to be in the same place as your reference photo. You just want that resemblance of them. Longer where the longer. So do you see? And then I'm just going to take this warm grey too and just sort of roughen up this edge. It's a bit smooth looking, so we're just going to add in like little bits of fur. So we've got the bottom whiskers in there. I'm then going to take the dark sepia, and we've got some whiskers coming out of here now. So I've got the dark sepia, and I'm just going to bring that one round. Again, you don't need to get them exactly right. We just want that resemblance that this guy does have whiskers. I'm just going to have that one in there. Extend that one a little bit. And then we've got some of them. And then I get the warm grey too, just for some of these lighter ones that he's got going on. Which are very light to see in the reference photo, but he does have these lighter greyer. And then just give a rough edge along this muzzle. So you see, now that he's got those whiskers in, he's looking more lifelike. He really is. I'm just going to add in the darker. So where these whiskers are lined up, I'm just adding in some of the lines with the warm grey too again, where we can see them. I just get the dark sepia, and he has a little one here, very lightly, so light pressure, and there's the whisker. Okay, right, we can get back to the fur now. So I've got the warm grey one again, and I'm going to get this base layer in. Now I'm making sure that where my base layer comes up is where the head is joining the ear. Now I'm not going to get the ear in today, but I want to make sure that we're making this part of his fur go all the way up to where that ear is going to be. And again, following the fur direction. With a base layer, it doesn't matter too much if the base layer doesn't follow the fur, because you can change it with your layers on top. But it does help. So if we just do a little section at a time, like usual. So that was the warm grey one base layer. I've now got the dark indigo again. And I am going to make sure that we're following this fur. And I'm blending over areas that have already got a bit of colour in. So I think I may have found a subject or two for the next tutorial. I have the option between a corgi and a spaniel. So I think I'm going to post it in the Facebook group. And see which one you guys would prefer. We'll just do headshots. But yeah, they're different. The corgi will be interesting if people want to do that, because obviously there's 3 different colours to contend with in this corgi I found. It's like a tricolour corgi, and the spaniel is obviously focused on the ear. So that should be fun. Right, that's the dark indigo. And then again, the Paynes Grey, which I've put down and can't see. There's the Paynes Grey. Over the top. I just need to sharpen my Paynes Grey. Okay, sharp Paynes Grey, and I can come back in now. It's nice when you get to this stage of a portrait, because you can really start to see this guy's personality shining through. And really starting to come to life. Again, go over the areas where we've already got colour applied, blend outwards. Sort of curving downwards here. And you can see how, even though we've not used black, we've used black, but it's not the predominant colour, he's still looking like a black and white border collie. And that's because we're really getting those highlights and shadows in. So the main thing with realism, which I'm going to do a video about, like the key to realism, I guess, is your values. So getting those darks really dark and those lights really light, which is what's going to happen at the end. When we think we're finished, we're going to put that, like I mentioned earlier, put the reference photo away. We're going to have a really good look at the piece and have a look at areas that we think, actually, this needs to be a bit darker. So looking at this already, I'm kind of thinking I can darken here and possibly darken along this ear. And it's all personal choice. You might not want to. You might get to the end of this tutorial and think, yeah, actually, I like the way it's looking. And that's fine. Right, so that's the Paynes Grey. I'm just going to blend over here. I'm going to get the Warm Grey 4. This is the 4. Warm Grey 4. Just along the top here. A bit lighter where the light's hitting his top of his head, and along here, and then I'm just going to do the Paynes Grey again, and I'm just going to press a little harder and just darken some of these sections up. So it's coming, and I'm using that section that's already got a bit of fur in just to blend over and get this nice smooth blend between where I want it to be just that little bit darker. I'm going to get the Warm Grey 6. Just looking a bit too cold in colour for me, so I'm just going to use the Warm Grey 6. Yeah, this is better. It's not as cold in colour now. Just over the top of that Paynes Grey. And again, I'm just going to blend out here. Want it all to blend and look nice and smooth, just like the fur is. Now don't worry about this part, that we've already got the base layer down. We're going to come down, and as we come down, this is all going to start blending nicely together. Because I've just noticed that I still haven't filled, obviously, that bit in. So I've got the Warm Grey 1 again. Now really focus on this fur because it's really sort of coming down his face here. So if we look where the eye is, the fur here is coming down. And then this fur here is curving round and sort of going downwards like that. So that's the sort of direction that we need to follow. It might be easier if we do it from the eye up for people to see. So if we do this bit of fur, this is a clump of fur here, so I'm going to bring this down to about here. You can see how it's curving downwards. Get that base layer down, and then get the dark indigo. So we are literally flipping between dark indigo, Paynes Grey, and occasionally the Warm Grey 6. And that's like a dark bit here. That's going to blend out. And then just a bit lighter here. Now before I go in with the Paynes Grey, I'm going to get the Warm Grey 6. And when I've marked out where it's darker, so here, I'm going to just fairly hard pressure with the Warm Grey 6. And this is just going to give me this clump of fur. So we're not drawing individual hairs, we're drawing this clump of fur, and then I'm just going to use those taper lines just to help with the blend, and then I will get the Paynes Grey. And again, just blending over. following this fur direction, coming down, so it's swooping down and curving nicely. And then we'll get that black and we'll darken again. So I've got the black, and I'm just going to redarken this line that was coming from the eye. And blend downwards here. And then across. This is where we've got the black, and we're just going to darken this bit of fur, and I'm blending downwards, so I'm pulling that pigment down. And then I will get the, I've got the Coal Grey 2. This might not be the one that I want to use. Let's have a look. Yeah, no, that's fine. So this is the Coal Grey 2, just to help with the blending. And then I'll go back in with that Paynes Grey over the black and just help to blend again. It's all about sort of smoothing and blending. It's this bit. Okay, and then we can go back in with the Warm Grey 1 and we can sort of add in the base layer here. So I'm coming in all the way up this head. And that's going to come down to that bit here. So this is where it's all going to start blending nicely together. So this is the Warm Grey 1. So I've brought that bit down here. So I'm going to get the Paynes Grey first, and I'm just going to mark in that this section here is dark, which is going into this darker section here, and all of this will just keep darkening up as we add the layers. I'm also going to add in the fact that there's like a darker clump here. And then there's one sort of here as well. So I'm just adding in a few little guidelines for myself. And then the dark indigo across all this base layer. So once we've done this section, we can blend it into this section. Really starting to get this shape of his face now. I do like this bit where like it all just sort of comes together. I know I may stop like the filming at weird stages, but it works. It does all come together. It's just about trusting the process and just watching it all come together. It's been quite a technical process. You've had a lot to deal with. Not only have you had black fur, but you've had white fur, and then you've had a mouth, which is gums, tongue, teeth. You've had a lot thrown at you in this one. I'm gonna get the dark sepia. I'm just gonna go back in where I had those darker lines. Over with the dark sepia. And then we've got the Paynes Grey. And again, I'm just going to start going over some of this and blending it down. So this is really sort of curving down. So it kind of got a curve up here and then it curves down its face. No, I think next week this piece will be finished. So obviously this tutorial part that I'm filming you will watch on Wednesday. The next part will come out next Friday. So I'm hoping by maybe a week on Wednesday we will have a finished piece. So I'm looking forward to seeing all your finished pieces if you want to share them with me. Really looking forward to seeing people that have followed along. We've got a few members in the Facebook group now. Which is nice. Hopefully we'll get a nice little community going. All around coloured pencils and drawing and dogs and whatever else people want to draw. So this is obviously going to take some time because you're just adding and building up the layers. Okay, so we've got some layers down. I'm just going to get the warm grey 6. Again, where these darker shadows are meant to be, I'm going to use a bit of a harder pressure and I'm going to blend them out. So the next couple parts of this tutorial will obviously be black fur, which does take time to build up. So I'm hoping that it won't be too boring for you guys. But I am going to explain the whole process. Just keep going like how I've been doing this. It is just a matter of building up those layers. And then I'm going to get the cold grey 6 and I'm going to use this all over again just to help build up this layers. It's really starting to blend nicely together though. And you can see the more layers you add, the more that you lose the grain of the paper that you can see here. But the more depth we're getting to this fur. So compared to like here, we're starting to really get this really nice depth to the fur. And we're also getting that nice shine to the fur. Just by layering. And if you're ever worried with your own piece of work, if you're not following a tutorial, sometimes you just need to keep going with your layers. Each layer is going to bring something new to your piece. I think a lot of people are scared to add too many layers, but don't be too scared to go in with a lot of layers. The same as like don't be too scared to go too dark. Now I know there's still times where I can go darker. Even now there's times I look back at pieces and go that needs to be darker. We all struggle with it, but we can take pieces darker than we think. Right, and then I'm going to get the Paynes Grey again, and I'm going to use a bit of a harder pressure. I'm going to go over all of this again. A good way of noticing if you've got your values correct. So when I'm talking about values, I mean your shadows and your highlights. If you're not sure if they're dark enough or light enough, take a photo of your piece of work and turn it black and white in a photo editing app. Most phones have black and white, or you can even drop me an email and ask me to turn it black and white. Like, I'm more than happy to do that. And when you turn it black and white, you will be able to see any areas that look all a bit samey, and you'll be able to see easier areas that you can go darker with and areas where you can add a few more highlights. So like at the moment I can see that all this colour is looking very much alike. So once we've done this Paynes Grey, I'm going to go back in with the black and we're going to add that contrast and really up the contrast. So we're just doing this Paynes Grey first, and then we will come in and really ump the contrast in this piece, which we're kind of doing. And the more layers we add, the more depth we're getting, but we do need a bit more contrast. We've got the midtones in, we need those shadows. So I'm going to get the Cold Grey 2. I'm just going to help smooth out some of this with a Cold Grey 2. Again, I'm not pressed very hard. This is why I can get lots of layers. I'm not pressing hard. Light pressure. Okay, and I'm going to get the black. So I know that this needs to be darker, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to blend that out. We've lost a bit of the definition here, so I'm just going to so can we see now that we're coming in with this black again, and I'm just going to go back over here. If I darken here, you can see that we're really starting to add these shadows back in. You see the difference? And then I'm going to come down here. We've got this darker bit here. And remember, I'm still wanting it to look blended. I want it all to look blended out. So I'm just blending. You can see now that we're adding this darker areas. And by the dark areas, I'm just adding in those shadows that I can see on the reference photo. We're starting to really get that definition back in the fur. So we've got like a darker shadow coming here. Now, if you didn't see that all this looked like a mid-tone, by turning this photo black and white, you would have noticed that all of this area was pretty much the same tone, and you would have been able to come in at the end and darken and add some more value. Because it's quite difficult at the moment to get all these shadows in, because we need to blend it down here as well, but we're just adding in some of the little ones that we can see. I'm just gonna use like butter to draw on at the moment, which is nice. We've got a nice amount of layers coming in. Just gonna... And I'm going to take the warm grey 6, and I'm very lightly just going to add some of the warm grey because it's looking very blue here. And I'm not adding the warm grey 6 all over, I just want it in some of the areas just to tone down that blue tone ever so slightly. Again, this is a personal choice, I just don't want mine to look too blue. Obviously using the Paynes Grey, the dark indigo, and then the cold greys, it's going to add quite a bit of a bluish hue. So using the warm greys will help knock that back. Right, let's get this little bit done. And then we make all this part finished. Because I want to get the ear in next. And we're sort of getting there. So I think the next part of the tutorial will be the ear. And then the final part will be this final dark section and the bit of the white fur. I think is the way it's going to go, depending on how long it takes me to film. I don't want to be dragging it out too long, but I also don't want really long tutorials for you guys. I think an hour is quite a nice time for you all. So, got the dark indigo, sorry, going over this base layer now. And this is coming straight across. So that's what we're going to do. We come straight across with this dark indigo over the areas that I've already got pigment down to help blend it. And then this area does start to curve. So we're just going to start getting that curve in. Then going to get that mauve, so that purple. You can use the purple violet or the blue violet if you wanted. Got a bit of a purple tone just along here. Just going to very lightly add that in. Very lightly. And then back to the Paynes Grey. Just going to add that straight across. Just doing this a couple of times just to add a few more layers. There's not as many layers here yet, as we have elsewhere. So we're just adding a few more. And then I'm going back over that purple, curving, this section's curving down, but then we're going across. So again, it's all about this fur direction. We're following that fur. I'm just using the sharp points of the pencil. If you need to sharpen your pencil, do. I'm just using that sharp point of the pencil. It's not quite blunt yet for me, so I can just keep building on top of it. Okay, I'm then going to get the warm grey 6. And I'm just going to map in some of these darker lines again with the warm grey 6. So I'm using harder pressure. I'm just mapping some of these darker lines, which is, these darker lines I'm adding in are the clumps of fur. So we're just adding in some of these clumps that we can see. That's coming down. And then that's sort of coming here as well. And then going to get the cold grey 6. Oh, sorry, that was the cold grey 6 that I was using. If you've used the warm grey 6, keep the warm grey. That's fine. I'm just going to go over this with the warm grey 6 because I'm silly. Right, and then I'm going to get the Paynes Grey again. Back over the top. And I'm going to start applying a bit more pressure now because I want this to start really smoothing out. And this is before we go back in with any black. So I'm just a bit of a harder pressure, and I'm going over the areas where there's already pigment just to help with that blend. And then I'm bringing that down. I'm going to get the cold grey 2, and I'm going to use this on all this area where I can see a bit of grain, harder pressure, and I'm just going to use this to help with smoothing it out. I'm going to use the warm grey 2. It's looking a bit blue again. So I'm just going to use the warm grey 2 down here, just to help with that smoothness. Okay, and I'm going to get make sure I've got the warm grey 6 this time. Warm grey 6 again, and I'm just going to come in over the top where we've just helped smooth it all out. Just add a bit more definition. And these darker bits, and then we will be able to get the black. So you can see it's already looking nice and dark here, and we've not used the black. So the black is really used last minute just to really up that contrast. I'm just going to bring this line here. This area is looking a bit light. So this is still the warm grey 6. Just going to darken here because it's looking a bit light compared to this section that we've got going on at the moment. Yeah, so that's the warm grey 6. I'm then just going to get the cold grey 6 just on this section here, above this whisker. Just to help darken ever so slightly. There, okay, and then we'll get the black, and I'm following it from this eye, and I'm just going to darken where I can see that it's really, really dark, and I'm just going to apply nice pressure to this black, and we're going to just really start umping up this contrast. And the black is sort of used to add some of those extra details, finer lines. So it's a really sharp pencil, and you can see that we're starting to get some of this fur texture now. So by following the fur direction, you're sort of building up all the layers of fur, and you're getting this natural look to the fur. And then you're going in as a final layer with a black, just to pick out those extra layers of detail. just going to blend any areas that need a bit of blending. Bring that lower down here. And then I'm just going to get back in with that Paynes Grey just to blend these areas nicely together. Going over some of that black. Okay, and then I'm just going to take this, do I want the black? I'm going to take the dark sepia and I'm just going to add in some of these lines over the top of the Paynes Grey. And I'm just going to smooth, that help to blend this black into this fur, because the black line's looking a bit too harsh. I want them to just look blended and smooth. So we use this dark sepia. And then I'm going to get that warm grey too again, just over the tops. Where I feel it just needs a bit of blending out. Like so. So yeah, I think we're going to leave this guy here for now. As you can see, we're really starting to really get this head coming together now. We're nearly there. We are very, very close to this piece being done. We've got a nice section of his head done today and the mouth finished. So next time we'll be working on this big ear. Might try and get the ear and like this top half of his head done, and then the last section can just be the rest of the black fur and the white fur. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this one. We are very, very close to him being finished. This time next week, hopefully, he will be finished. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something. Any questions, let me know, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye everybody.